In today's video, I'm going to be talking about tools I use when I'm working on pocket knives. That episode's coming right up. Hello everybody, and thanks for coming back for another video. This is Dave and I'm glad you're with me. Something a little bit different today's video. I'm going to be talking about some of the more popular tools that I use when I'm working on pocket knives. A lot of these tools I made myself and might give you ideas to make your own, or you can leave comments down there and let me know what you use. This is just what I use most regularly. So this definitely won't be an exhaustive list of every single tool I use. This is just some of the ones that I grab that I seem to use almost on a daily basis if I'm working on pocket knives. These are my go-to tools that I use quite often. So I grabbed those to show you, and any others I might think of as I'm making this video, I'll grab those and show those to you as well. So I'll start off with the most common thing you do with these old pocket knives, such as like this one right here, or here's another one I grabbed. These are parts knives basically. But it's cleaning them up. And cleaning them up, if they're really rusty, I'll put them in my Easy Homemade Liquid Rust Remover. I have a video on how I made that. You can search for that, Easy Homemade Liquid Rust Remover, and that's the only rust remover I use. I used to use Evaporust quite a bit, but it got really expensive, so I made that. So if it's really bad, I'll soak it in that sometimes. So the most common thing I use to remove rust off of blades is a Dremel and one of these fiber wheels. Now these fiber wheels come in a variety of different grits, and the color denotes the grit size, and the tan or brown colored one here is the coarsest, and the gray one here is the finest, and these are in between. And I use those quite a bit. I go through a lot of those. Yeah, here lately I've been buying a box of maybe 40 or 50. I forget how many come in a box every month, and I go through those. In addition to those, with the Dremel, I have two Dremels I use primarily. I have a couple of other ones too, but the main one I use is a variable speed. Well, both of them are variable speed. One I use with all the attachments, such as these fiber wheels and little wire brushes such as this. Yeah, and then I have this one here, which is on a flex shaft that I can grab, and I keep a bird cutter in it, a carbide tip bird cutter, and I use that to cut the heads of pins off, to grind off the heads of the pins on pocket knives that I'm taking apart. Mostly. I use it on a lot of other things, but that's mostly what I use that one for, and I can just grab it when I need it. Now back to dirty pocket knives. If they're really bad, like I said, rust, I'll put them in rust remover. Sometimes I'll just work it out by hand. Emery boards like this that you use on your nails. These are great for cleaning out the inside of scales on thinner knives such as this that will have a center liner in them, so the cavity isn't very big down in the well for you to get something like this wire brush down in. Now this wire brush works great on camp or scout style knives because they have no liner in them, the 4-bladed type or 3-bladed type, and these will fit down in there very nice, and they'll do a good job at cleaning the springs and cleaning a lot of the gunk out of them with a wire wheel like this. I have taken these wire brushes and used cutters, like diagonal cutters such as these, dikes, and snipped off a lot of the wires to make it where there isn't as much wire there, and then it'll get twisted up real tight. I had one of these where I snipped all the wires off, and I used it quite a bit, and it ended up breaking off on me, so I need to make another one. But if you snip off, I'm going to say like 2/3 of the wires off of this brush, and then twist it up real tight, it works really good at cleaning off the tangs on pocket knives. It'll slip right down in here and be able to clean all those tangs off. Like I said, that other one I made, it lasted a long time before it finally broke on me the other day, so I need to whip up another one real quick. But that's real handy for cleaning that area out real good and cleaning up gunk and stuff that's on the tangs on pocket knives. You also have brushes like these, the cup style, and then you have the wheel style. I'll use these sometimes, but the drawback with these, the bristles aren't long enough to reach down into the bottom and clean the springs in pocket knives in most cases. And also because of the diameter of it, you can't get up close to the tangs, and it always leaves that area untouched because of the shape of it. And that's where a brush type really comes in handy for getting right up there close to the tangs and stuff and cleaning all that gunk out. So cleaning out wells, yeah, there's this. Now if it's a really bad one, I have a video on this I made, and it's a soda blaster. And you hook it to your air compressor, you put baking soda in here, and you can it does a really good job. I have a video on this, and actually I just created a playlist on pocket knife repair. I think it's titled Knife Repair Videos. And so this video will be in that on the playlist, and then I'll try and find the video where I showed this in action. On pocket knives with really nasty wells, you can use this, and it slips down inside, and you can blast all that nasty stuff out with something like this. And it was really easy to make, really inexpensive. And now I'm going to continue on with pocket knife cleaning before I get into some of these tools that I've made for repair of knives. Sandpaper is definitely a must. I have a lot of belts where the seams have broken off just because of the weather conditions here. Unless they're stored in an air-conditioned environment, they just never seem to last. So I take those belts and I rip them up into strips like this. I do have some rolls of emery also, but these have a thicker backing on them, so I like them. And so they're real handy with, you can see this one here, how I've used it. And I just use a little section of it down in a pocket knife well, and then I fold it over to get a new abrasive, and then use it, and that's how I clean them out, is with pieces like that. And then I save my 5-inch PSA discs when they start getting worn out, and I fold them in half. And I find that I use these a lot also. And then sheets of regular sandpaper. Here's some 600 grit, and I just use it and use it and use it and use it. And the more I use it, the finer it gets actually. So this 600 grit is probably more like 1,000 grit now, or 1,200 grit or something like that. But it's still handy. And I get all the life out of sandpaper that I possibly can before I throw it away. Okay then, and now other attachments I use in the Dremel real quick. I use a lot of carbide cutters, such as these, such as the one that I have in my flex shaft there. And then also I use these little drum sanders, and these are super handy when working on knives, when you're replacing scales on knives that have easy opening cutouts. Here's an example of one right here on this old camp knife right here, this area right here. This is the tool I use to sand away that portion of the handle material right in here when I'm making new handle scales. So I find I use these quite a bit. So I have hundreds of bits and things for Dremels, but those are the most common I use. I have buffing wheels and all that kind of stuff, but I rarely use them. I have a power buffer that I use most often when I'm working on knives for polishing, and that's in my other shop. But it's basically just a big buffer, you know, with buffing wheels, 8-inch buffing wheels on it. And then I also have a 10-inch that I kept a sisal wheel in, and then a sewn muslin wheel, but I don't use that one anymore. Okay, next I'll talk about oils real quick before I get into the tools. The oils I most commonly use is this one here, which is a blend of my own oil that I make, that I used to make. I have a bunch of it, but it's basically a blend of oils. It's kind of a general purpose oil. I did design it for fishing reels, but it works on door hinges and everything. And I'll use this on a really bad knife that needs a little more action. I don't do the mineral oil soak like I know a lot of you do, and that's perfectly fine. You've been using it, use it, that works great. I just don't do it that way. I use this oil, and then for my final oiling, I use this. That's a food grade silicone oil, and I find it works really good. It's nice and thick. It clings really well, and it does an excellent job on pocket knife pivots. So this is my go-to oil my final oiling stage of all my knives. This is the oil that it gets. I go through a lot of epoxy. I pin on handle scales, but occasionally I do use epoxy in addition to pins to hold scales on, and repairing handle scales that have cracked and that type of thing. Which reminds me, let me get out my dies and I'll show you those real quick. So if you saw my last video, or one of my last videos, where I repaired some cracked handle scales on knives, this isn't one of them, and I already put that one away, but it had a crack in the plastic. In the case of that knife, I use this quick set epoxy right here, the 5-minute type, and I mixed it up with some of this. This isn't the purple, actually, PVC pipe cleaner. It was actually the clear that I bought a big can of it, and I poured it in. I saved all these little things from doing PVC plumbing work. It's nice because they have that little applicator built into the lid, and it works great for dyeing PVC, but I found it really works good with other things. So what you do is you go to your hardware store and you buy some PVC cleaner, but you get the clear type, not the purple, but the clear. And then you buy this Reca oil. It's not cheap, but it lasts forever. I bought these. You can still barely read the label, but I'll get in close so you can see it. Reca oil. And just a drop or two of this in one of these cans is enough to dye it. It lasts a really long time. I just looked it up recently, and it's about $22 for a bottle this size. But I've had this for probably 15 years or more, and there's still quite a bit in it. It really goes a long way. And you can get it in black, blue, this one's a blue, orange, various different colors, and you can mix them to get whatever color you want. So basically, yeah, I just take some epoxy, mix it up, and then I use this, which has the cleaner in it, but it doesn't hurt it any, and I put a drop of this dye into the epoxy, give it a good mix, and then proceed to fill in my crack or do my repair with it. And so that's what I've found that works really well on cracked pocket knife handles. And you'll find a lot of other uses for this dye. I have a video titled Easy Knife Case Clips and Other Things from PVC. And in that video, I show some various things I made out of PVC, and I dye them with that exact same dye that I use to color epoxy for repairs. And so now moving along into the tools that I most often use in pocket knife repair. If it's a modern day knife and it needs to be taken apart with Torx head fasteners and that type of thing, here's a little homemade screwdriver I made. I have a few of these, and it's basically just in this case, a piece of burl walnut, and I bored it out and I glued one of these into it, and it's very comfortable and easy to use. And I find I use this one most often when I'm taking pocket knives apart. Okay, and then now taking knives apart. In most cases, I do cut the pins, and I'll use Stanley blades like this. Here's one that I used in the past, has a chip in it, but I can still get a lot more use out of this. Just make sure when I cut the pins, I put it in a different spot. And then I use a hammer. In this case, here's my homemade hammer that I use every day. And give it some good whacks and cut that pin, easy peasy. You can use something like a razor blade, and it'll probably work, but it'll probably break on you too, and then you'll have sharp pieces of razor blade down inside. I find that one of these, now they make these in two different thicknesses. They have the standard, and then they have a heavy duty. This one is a standard, but I do have a box full of heavy duty ones I usually use. They're a little bit thicker, but they'll still work just fine. So if you have to take apart a knife to replace a blade, let's say, in a pocket knife with really nice bone on it, and you don't want that bone to crack on you, you're better off using something as thin as you possibly can, because the thicker the blade you're using to cut the pins, the more you could distort or deform the bone, bend it to the point where it cracks. So you want to use something really, really thin. I have a number of knives here in front of me that I use for various applications. I have one I use as a hot knife. I'll heat it up with a torch to cut stuff like paracord. I have this one I've used in the past that I made for a shearing knife. I have a lot of different knives I use for different things, but when I'm cutting pins on pocket knives, I usually use these, or I'll grind the heads and then I'll drive the pins out with a punch such as this. I have a variety of other punches. This is just one I grabbed to show you, but a punch and a hammer. And some pins can be really difficult to remove, and you have to really grind them down close to the bolster or whatever it is, and then drive it out from there. If the pin is protruding quite a bit and you're trying to remove it, let's just say you took this apart and you have the pin and it's sticking up quite a bit, and you go to hammer it out, it's going to mushroom on the end before it reaches the hole itself. So you're better off just sanding or grinding your pin down flush to the hole that you're trying to remove it from, and then take it out from there. Then there's no risk of that pin mushrooming to the point you can't get it through the hole. In most cases on pocket knives, the pins are going to be made out of either nickel or brass, and they will mushroom fairly easily. And then I'll just talk real briefly about pins and pin material. You can get it in a variety of different sizes. I generally don't buy a lot of different sizes. I make my own. I'd rather buy something a little bit thicker than I'm normally going to use. Chuck it up in a drill, put it on the sander, and just sand it to the diameter that I need. And that's most often what I do. Most of the stuff, I have a whole drawer full of cutler pins. And I can usually find in there what I need, but it's no big deal. It only takes a couple seconds to get it to the right diameter that I need. Now, when you're putting the knife back together, you want to use some type of a shim or something on the pivot point of the blades, and this is what I use. This is a piece of shim brass, and it's actually 3/1000 thick. I know a lot of people use a razor blade for your shim, and that works fine. Razor blades are about 10/1000 thick, and so if you use a razor blade, it's going to have a little bit more play in a lot of cases than it would if you use something thinner. I find that this little piece of shim brass that I use all the time is great. It works really well, and it gives just enough clearance for the knife to be tight and still have snap in it. I don't want this video to get too terribly long, so I'm going to run through a lot more of this stuff real fast. I use paper towels, rags, obviously, a lot to clean out. I also use these little alcohol prep pads a lot. I buy them in a big box, and they're great for wiping something off before I dye it, cleaning it really well, making sure there's no oils from your fingers or anything on the surface that could cause beading, or for your dye not to penetrate in a certain spot. So alcohol prep pads are really handy to have. I have a couple of these little, very small antique clamps. In this shop, I only have one vise, and so a lot of times it's being used for something else and not available when I clamp something up for epoxy to, say, dry and cure. So I'll use small clamps like this, are really handy to clamp on handle materials and things like that, and let them set until they cure. I have this little tool right here I made. I just realized I don't have my filming light on. Let me turn my filming light on. Maybe you'll be able to see this stuff a little bit better now. So here's a little tool I made. It's just a stainless steel blade I made. And this is for removing scales on Victorinox pocket knives. And it really comes in handy. Little walnut handle I made. And you can slip it in right around those rivets. Give it a little twist. It pops right off. Make sure you soak it in hot water first. It doesn't have to be boiling water, just really hot water. Soak that knife in there first, and then it greatly reduces the risk of the plastic breaking off around the rivets if it's softened up a little bit in hot water, and then use something like this. Or you can just use a knife blade. I was just at some point doing it so much that I actually made a tool dedicated for that task. But you could just as easy use any knife blade to pop the scales off. Working on shell handle scales, which I do quite a bit on imperial style knives and colonial knives with the clamshell style handles. This is my go-to tool for bending those tabs up, and this is just a small screwdriver that I ground down a little bit thinner, kind of shaped it the way that it seems to work really well at getting under those tabs and bending them up. And then another, this is a Singer sewing machine screwdriver that I bent the tip on, and I find I use this quite a bit too for the same thing, either bending up those little tabs on shell style knives, or I'll use these down in pocket knife wells with a alcohol pad or paper towel, and I'll use these to kind of run it up and clean gunk out and that kind of thing. I use this thing all the time. It's really handy. And then here's another little tool I use a lot. And this is just a piece of stainless steel TIG rod. And I shaped it to how you see it now. And this is really handy in scraping out and cleaning out pocket knife wells and things like that. I use this all the time also. And then here is a sewing needle that I just stuck in a cork for kind of a handle. And I use this quite a bit too on pocket knives. Cleaning nail nicks. This works really well for cleaning out gunk in nail nicks and that kind of thing. And down inside wells to get stuff that's right up along the edges of the liners and the springs. This does a really good job for pocket knife cleaning out. It's something really simple and easy, but it works great. And then on the subject of shell handle scales, these are the pliers you may have seen before that I modified. I ground them down to where they're very thin right here. And normally I have a piece of electrical tape around this end to protect the bolsters. But these are the pliers I use to bend the tabs back down when I'm putting the knife back together. These come in real handy. The real skinny part goes down inside on some of those really small knives, and it does a really good job. And then, like I said, normally I have a piece of tape, but it fell off around this. I really should do something like Plasti Dip on it. I have some Plasti Dip I could use, and dip this a few times in Plasti Dip, and that'll protect the bolster from getting any kind of damage or scratches in it when you're bending those tabs back over. And then, if you've been watching me for a while, you know a lot of knives I come across are missing their bails. I do have a dedicated video on bail making, and you'll find that in the knife repair videos playlist. But basically, here's some. I bent up quite a few the last time I needed to make one, so I have quite a few already at this stage. So from this stage right here, all I have to do is cut them to the length I want and bend these tabs over. Now this is the bail type bail, not the shackle type bail. The shackle type bail, I plan on a video in the future on making those. I haven't shown those, I don't believe, in the video. I've shown some knives where I've made shackle type. Those are the kind that have a pin that runs through. So I'm calling those shackles, not bails. But you can use the terminology interchangeably, but that's a totally different style bail. So I'll show that in an upcoming video. So make sure you subscribe to my channel, and then you'll catch that video when I make it, if that's something you're interested in. But basically, that's it with bails. Cutters, I use these quite a bit. I have a variety of different type cutters, but these are my go-to for cutting pins when I'm repinning pocket knives. Those are usually what I'll use. And this is the jig I made that I showed in my bail making video that I used to bend these. And this basically just makes it this diameter. Now this is just I made out of scraps years ago. These screw in. You can put different mandrels in there for different sizes and stuff, different tapped holes for different bending configurations. And then this handle just slips over it, and you run it around, and it makes a really nice, perfect bend. And you can easily make something like this out of just scraps. In the case of making bails with coat hanger, which I do quite a bit too, that stuff is so thin and easy. Yeah, just clamp your punch or your ball peen hammer or your hammer, whatever's the right diameter you need, into a vise or something, and take your coat hanger and just bend it around it, and then you can bend the tabs with pliers. It's really easy to work with. Very inexpensive and relatively easy to do. Q-tips I didn't mention. I go through a lot of Q-tips cleaning out pocket knives, pocket knife wells. Like I mentioned, rags, paper towels, that kind of thing. And then I've been using here lately this scratch remover. I'm not 100% happy with it, but it does work. It does make a difference. Like Victorinox pocket knife scales and that kind of thing that are scratched up. You have to really work a lot with this stuff. The grit is so fine. I don't know what it is, but if I had to guess, I'd say 60,000 grit or something like that. So it takes quite a bit of work with this. This would be your final finish to remove scratches. Of course, then Never Dull. Go through a lot of Never Dull, use that quite a bit, polishing up knives. And then finish on wood scales, I use boiled linseed oil quite a bit. Any type of drying oil works really well. Boiled linseed oil will dry a lot faster than raw linseed oil will. And depending on the wood you're putting it on, sometimes it takes multiple applications. If it just keeps soaking in and soaking in, you have to keep going back about every 20 minutes, half an hour, put another coat on it, and just keep doing that until you get the finish you desire. But it works really well and provides a really nice, long-lasting finish. What kind of finish do you use on wood knife handles? I'd love to hear from you. So that's about it, folks. I covered quite a few things. I tried to do it in a short period of time so as the video not to run too terribly long. But there's quite a few other things that I use. This is just kind of a rundown of the things that I thought of that I use most often because I use them almost every day. So I thought I'd show them to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come on back for the next one. I appreciate you watching. This is Dave. I hope everybody's having a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.